Let's get ready to remake! Welcome to the Remake Revolution here on McGTV, youtube.com/MikeMcGTV. Follow me on Twitter at MikeMcGTV. And I'm very excited because this is not only our third episode of the Remake Revolution, and it's well underway, a monthly occurrence, but this is the first show in which NeverEndingRadicalDude and 3 Geeks Podcast are crossing camps, and we're going to be hearing a little bit of input from both sides on this particular property today. And joining me for that, first off, a representative from NeverEndingRadicalDude, Editor-in-Chief Jason Fury.
What up?
And on the other side of things, from 3 Geeks Podcast, one of the site's many nerds, Mr. Dan Bauer.
Hello.
Not quite as epic as Jason's What Up, but I'll go with it, sure. So, first of all, Jason, any big articles, big events coming down the pipes for NeverEndingRadicalDude pretty soon?
Absolutely not. No, you know, Fall TV just happened, so we have reviews of pretty much everything that we thought was worth reviewing. So there's no Shield review, but a lot of the big shows you can catch. We did a premiere reviews, plural. But yeah, other than that, it's just kind of up-to-date news reviews. You know, a lot of TV, Fantastic Beasts, Arrival reviews are up, Doctor Strange reviews up. So definitely a lot of content to check out right now, and then a lot of videos coming out pretty soon. Working on them right now.
And Dan, how about for you over at 3 Geeks? Anything on either articles or podcasts or videos coming up soon?
Just have our weekly stuff. Apparently they did a podcast last night, which I was not part of. Do the Animaniacs every week, which I'm supposed to watch Young Justice for tomorrow and haven't started it yet. We also have a Doctor Strange review that we did a couple weeks ago.
Nice.
Just daily things.
So again, check out both sites, NeverEndingRadicalDude.com. They're also on YouTube under the Rad Nerds label, I believe. And also check out 3 Geeks Podcast, also 3geeks.ninja for written articles as well. And as always, I'm doing McChats here and there with Dan, branching out, talking about other stuff beyond just geeky movies or nerdy stuff, trying to get a couple of different voices on McChats, and probably some fun holiday videos coming soon, along with some movie reviews pretty soon as well. I, too, intend to give my 2 cents on maybe Arrival. Assassin's Creed I'm definitely going to be reviewing, both for NeverEndingRadicalDude and my own site, but stay tuned. Fun stuff. But there's 3 of us here, but we're going to walk away from tonight's episode with one vision because, as we all know, based off of our target property tonight, there can be only one. We are going to be focusing on a remake or reboot of the Highlander.
Target acquired.
Sorry, that was a very bad Scottish accent.
Well, at least you tried. I'm not even going there, so...
I don't know. I mean, was anybody in the actual films have a really good Scottish accent to begin with?
Well, was anyone
sure.
Was
there were a lot of
Actual,
extras.
yeah, they could have had great accents for all you know.
They might, if they talked, they would have.
And let's face it, none of the main people were actually playing the nationalities they're supposed to be. Before we get into rebooting Highlander, let me just quickly get everyone's 2 cents on the original, either the first film or the franchise as a whole. Let's start with Dan. What are your thoughts on Highlander?
I love the Highlander franchise. Even the TV show, even the crappy spin-off TV show, even the original version of Highlander 2, where they're all from space. Yeah, I think it's all pretty great.
All right, that was the planet Zeist or something, right?
Yeah. It was awful, but oddly epic in its badness.
And they were pissed off because the second one retcon punched everything having to do with the first one, right?
Well, the producers took it away from the director because he was horribly over budget and just pieced together what they thought the film should be. And it makes no sense with anything else.
Yeah, I think it's because, you know, the first Highlander movie I don't know if they plan sequels because it's totally like a beginning, middle, and end kind of movie. They set up the premise. They talk about all the immortals and that there can be only one, and then there's only a few left, and then you kind of, spoiler alert, you kind of see that all come to a head at the end, and then there's a sequel that makes no sense and totally kind of disregards all of that, and then following movies and TV shows didn't really play into the original concept that much either. It's like they just kind of tucked that one huge element under the rug just so they could keep making more.
Yeah, I mean, they were kind of slightly lacking quality too, the later movies.
Yeah, totally got into B movie territory.
Yeah, like 3 I think is the worst one just because it's kind of blah.
Yeah, I think 3 is kind of like, 1 and 2 were kind of like theatrical. They're, pretty big and popular. And then 3 is kind of, I'd give it credit for being a cult classic because I do know a lot of people that really like it because it is kind of, I don't know, a little bit darker and they get into more like the philosophy of it. And then Highlander Endgame was totally just, while I liked it, it's just totally B game.
Yeah, and that whole thing about the rules just chased me the wrong way in Endgame.
Yeah, well, yeah, especially considering the history of the franchise. Just like I said, the first movie is just totally its own thing, like almost separate. And once you're getting into like the big, like the heart-wrenching things of the fourth one, you're like, well, I thought he already like achieved this. I don't know. It just got really muddled and kind of convoluted over the years.
I don't have as in-depth a knowledge of the Highlander franchise as probably you guys do. I've only seen bits and pieces of Endgame here and there. I've only seen the original and The Quickening. Those are the only two movies I've seen. And while I think it's an awesome premise, and definitely I agree more with Jason on this side, whereas the first film I feel is a very well packaged type of narrative to carry this premise through in a way. And when you get into the idea of multiple sequels afterwards, it's like kind of defeats the whole point of his receiving the prize at the end.
Right.
If there's one more out there that he has to show that he is in fact the one. But
yeah.
Well, no, since the aliens came from planet Zeist or wherever the hell they came from, then he's not the one anymore. So he when he killed one, he gets the quickening back and he gets young. It's oddly ridiculous, but at least they did try to explain it.
They tried their best with what they were given, but clearly I don't have as intimate a knowledge as probably either of you do with regards to the franchise or with regards to, like you said, the TV show, which, from what I understand, tried to flesh out a little bit of the backstory, but also kind of contradicted the backstory of the original in a way. So there is a convoluted continuity and timeline, to say the least. I think we can all agree on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So if anyone was going to be kind of taking the remake hammer to this particular franchise, I guess we can get into a little bit of that and see what we would want to kind of focus on with a new interpretation, or possibly even a continuation that could maybe iron out a few details. But we all start that with the pitch.
The wind-up, the pitch.
And again, here in the pitch, I'm going to start with one person here to kind of maybe give a brief synopsis or a brief idea as to what they would want their rebooted Highlander franchise or rebooted Highlander movie to lay its focus. And let me start this time with Jason. What is your pitch for a Highlander reboot?
Well, like we mentioned, there was, Highlander, then Highlander 2, Highlander 3, Highlander Endgame, and then we had The Source, I believe it was called, and then multiple TV shows, and the anime, The Search for Vengeance, which was pretty awesome, but kind of unrelated to everything else. I think really you just got to rewind it back to the original Highlander, focus on the prize and the last remaining immortals, and kind of mirror the tone of the original. I think they should keep the flashbacks and kind of tie in like the struggles of being immortal, because that's kind of what I always like. They're kind of like vampires, it's kind of like tragic, and they've just loved and lost repeatedly. So it's important to flesh out the characters that way, but I think they should just get real deep into the mythology of what the prize is and how the immortals have been living amongst us all these years, and kind of that whole culture of there can be only one, and how that affects the relationships. I think there's a lot to do, but I also think that if you are going to reboot Highlander, it should be probably set up as a trilogy with a beginning, middle, and end, not just kind of keeping it weird and just keeping it going forever until people lose interest. I think there should totally be like an end game that shows us like what the prize is and what it does to the immortal. Even potentially having one of those films after there's just one. Like what would the world be like with just one immortal? I think that would be all really interesting territory. And there's just tons and tons of, history with this, and there's just tons of material that they could really just take the best elements of all these projects and just kind of wrap them into a tight narrative with the trilogy.
So you're proposing all for expanded mythology, but at the same time have a planned out pacing to a series of films, as opposed to just going, well, the first one made money, so let's go for a second one. Does that, and so forth.
Yeah.
Intend to have others, but be able to stretch the story out over those.
Yeah, totally. Like, you think about characters like Superman, for example. Like, think of the world, like, because he's going to outlive so many people, but they never show that. They never show that side of it. So I just think starting it with the history and the flashbacks and having a like great introduction to the universe, the middle movie could be kind of just like the fight for the prize, and maybe at the end of it, someone could get the prize and get to the end, and then the third one can kind of show the fallout and what the world looks like from that point.
Dan, how about for you? What do you envision for a revitalized Highlander movie or franchise?
Actually, that works pretty well into mine. See, I've been thinking about this like since we've decided Highlander was going to be the next topic. I came up with this 3-hour epic that is mostly going to be like in the future with like flying cars and stuff and giant skyscrapers and cool futuristic stuff. But you'd have all those like flashbacks to the past. The Highlander is going to have lived, since he is the Highlander, so he's got to come somewhere from Scotland at some point. But I'd like to tie it into the TV show as well and bring the concept of the Watchers back, like the humans that watch the Highlanders and kind of follow them around, see what they're doing, make sure they're not screwing up too badly. I want like their information to fall like into the world government so that they know that there's Highlanders, so they have like special shock troop squads that are supposed to come after the Highlanders while they're all trying to fight for the prize.
Nice.
But I think a trilogy would work well with that, honestly, because you could end up with your concept of having one guy left, but then he has to fight off like everything else because they all know who he is.
Mm-hmm.
So in the
That
future is when it's established like everyone's aware of immortals and like you said, the Watchers.
At least like high parts of the government, so that they can send like basically hit squads after him.
Because once the Highlander's down to one, they're going to be all powerful, all knowledgeable. Like how are they going to use that power? Like, because like what you're saying, the government could see them as a threat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I like that concept. I also like every Highlander flick has like the one, the love interest that just falls into the clutches of the bad guy, and then she's hanging off a sign while everybody's fighting. So I'd like to change that into making like it like she could be like head of one of the hit squads, but she falls in love with the Highlander and they end up like running off together, and of course they're like running through glass skyscraper corridors and bullets are flying everywhere.
Yeah, and then the TV show and the anime kind of like touched on it a little bit, I think, but there weren't a lot of female Highlanders, or like not Highlanders but immortals going for the prize. It didn't seem. I don't remember. I just watched one recently, but
I know one of the aspects of being immortal was that they weren't able to procreate, essentially. Like that was it.
Right.
And that could touch into a lot of the isolation stuff you're kind of mentioning with regards to their long lifespans. Yeah, there's going to be no legacy besides them after everything is done. So that could really be interesting.
Plus you get to watch everything you care about die. Yay.
Yeah.
The feel-good summer action flick you've been wanting. So, kind of an agreement with regards to making the world very immersive, getting into the mythology of it a little bit, whether it is incorporating aspects from previous media, like you said, from the show, into a flowing narrative that can span multiple movies. Cool. I think we got a focus, definitely, for this particular reimagining. Now, let's move on to the next round here. Who should helm such a daunting task? Who would be our captain? Who is the one when it comes to directing?
Lights, camera, action.
Now, I'll start off with Dan on this one. Who would you envision could be able to handle a Highlander franchise?
I'm going with Luc Besson.
I just saw the trailer for Valerian recently. And yeah,
It looks cool.
Looks cool, yeah.
Yeah, it's based off a comic.
I was thinking more of he did The Messenger, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Joan of Arc one.
Mixed with Fifth Element.
Right. Yeah, if you're going future, I could see that.
All right, so that's your choice then.
Yes.
The Messenger mixed
that
with
is my
Fifth
one and only choice for this one.
Besson. All right, Jason, did you have anyone in particular in mind for this?
Yeah, I had one who's kind of been around for a while, and I'll probably butcher the name, but his name is Miguel Sapochnik, and he directed kind of the epic Game of Thrones episodes you might remember, like Battle of the Bastards, for example. I think he's done a few movies like Repo Man and stuff like that, and he's done a lot of TV. But just seeing the craftsmanship he has with his kind of guest directing spots on Game of Thrones, he's probably directed about 4 episodes. I think the dude needs to kind of break into the mainstream a little bit more with film because I think he's, I'm mostly thinking of like swordplay and then like flashbacks and just like epic immortal battles. And I think he's just proved himself 100% worthy of epic sweeping battles and swordplay. So I'd really like to see him kind of come into play in something like this and just lend his talents.
I should also preempt everything by saying, like, I really am not going to be offering any suggestions from my camp, seeing as how, again, I'm not quite as familiar, and also I'm a little bit underprepared this round, but I've loved the suggestions I'm hearing from both camps here. A question I would pose to both of you on this, since we might be thinking with regards to expanded trilogy or franchise, the possibility of incorporating both Luc Besson and what was his name again?
Miguel Sapochnik.
Miguel Sapochnik. With regards to, would we want to kind of trade off perhaps directing things, or would we want Luc Besson perhaps to be involved writing-wise, and so forth? Do you feel like one or the other could have a preliminary
I think
focus?
it could work kind of like Mission Impossible series, since we would be potentially like assuming we're going to deal with kind of like a backstory, a lot of flashbacks, and then sweeping all the way to futuristic stuff. It could be someone different for each film.
How about for you, Dan? Or would you want to see him take on dual directing roles, perhaps?
You could do, Besson for the future parts and, some of the writing credits to keep, the characters on, at least stable, and then use the other guy who I'm not going to try to say his name to do the past, the flashbacks and stuff like that.
The more medieval stuff, yeah.
Or they could just switch off. Either way.
All right, so I think that might be actually a good compromise, especially since I think one of the great things too is we're thinking long term too, and allowing ourselves plenty of room to grow and develop ideas just beyond one movie. It's like, yeah, at this point, in this day and age, at some point there will be a Highlander shared universe or something. There will be the Highlander verse or whatever,
right,
that spans multiple movies. This one we'll definitely have to probably come back to in discussion here, but probably where we're going to get a lot of interesting choices. And while we get into the cast, I'm actually going to be, on my part, just throwing out little tidbits of who has been attached to this project talent-wise, what could have been. Because there's been reboot talk about the Highlander for a long while now, and it's kind of floundered off and on through the years. So while you guys are putting out your choices for the cast, I'll supplement it with that. But yes, let's move on to the cast.
From Brad Pitt to Joyce DeWitt, it's time to meet your cast.
Now, for the cast, one question I had for you was that would we want to be bringing back characters that have already been established, or would you want to break ground with kind of new characters filling out those archetype roles? Like, for example, would you want to bring back Connor? Would you want to bring back Ramirez and the Kurgan? Or would you want to maybe try to come up with some new ideas for characters that kind of fit that new character in this mythology, mentor, adversary type roles? I'll start with Dan this time.
I would say to bring back Connor, because you need to have a Highlander. I mean, because the film is called Highlander. It's not super awesome guy that won't die unless his head gets chopped off, dude. And
Lowlander.
Lowlander.
Australia.
British man. And are we doing cast?
Yeah, let's start with say the lead. Whoever our Highlander would be.
Let's assume we're going to do Connor, because I think he's just an iconic character. It'd be like,
okay.
I don't know, it'd be a little sacrilegious, like New Indiana Jones starring Dominic Douchebag or something. It'd be like, what? That's not an Indiana Jones movie.
All right,
Probably
so
like it better than 4.
Already we agree Connor.
I disagree, I like 4. Another discussion.
That's for another
Fair enough.
time.
Another time.
Oh, we'll be getting to that at some point as soon as the actual fifth one becomes more of a reality. But so we're in agreement. Connor, in some way, shape, or form, is that central character that the story will revolve around. Who would you see as Connor at this stage?
I want Mads Mikkelsen.
Mads Mikkelsen?
Yes.
All right. Reasoning?
Nice.
Because he's shown that he can do quick action, and he has, like, if you watch the first Highlander, like, in the flashbacks, Connor is, like, much more, like, babyface, like, what? I'm immortal, wow. But when you're in present day, he's just got this kind of, like, glowery look the whole time, like when he's being interrogated by the cops, he's like, what, you cruising for a piece of ass, you know? I think Mikkelsen could bring that to the table. He doesn't have to look evil. He just has to look, you know, kind of tired and worn out and pissed off.
He does have that kind of, I mean, his Le Chiffre look is kind of very tired and worn out from the looks.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, he
but
does
stoic.
Stoic,
but
yeah.
He's got that fast action like that the last episode of season 2 of Hannibal, where he just starts chopping up people left and right. I mean, I don't know. I think he could do it.
All right.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see him not typecast as the villain too. He's been such a bad guy.
Jason, who did you envision for Connor, or are you?
I mean, I had a handful of people. I think I agree. Like, I wanted to go with someone like older. I think a lot of studios want to get like a young, fresh face in there, but I think it should be someone that's maybe a little bit older. I had 3. My number 1 would be I don't know if you guys know who he is, but his name is Henry. I think it's Henry Ian Cusick. He played Desmond in Lost, and he's in the 100.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I think that dude would be sweet. I just really like him, and I don't think, you know, he gets shortchanged too much. I think it's Henry Ian Cusick, but he would be my first choice just because I think he's got it. Someone just needs to give him like a go. He's just had like really brief kind of stints in Hollywood and on TV, and I think it'd be good. And then if you wanted to go like super famous route, I'd always be down for Ewan McGregor or Thomas Jane. I think those 2 guys could kick butt in this role.
And Ewan McGregor will bring that genuine Scottishness to it.
Yeah, he's very proud of it already, and he's definitely like, he would own it. I think he would convince audiences a little bit more than other people just because of his heritage.
All right. So there's some possibilities there to consider. Moving on to say, let's go before we get to the Kurgan, like, would we want a Ramirez in there again, or someone to fill that role?
I want one, but I couldn't think of anybody. Like, why not just have Sean Connery do it again?
He's retired.
Don't care.
He won't be the one by the time this project gets out there.
Well, he cares, and that's the reason it won't work.
Fair enough.
That'd be cool, but you'd have to. I don't know how it would work. I could only think of Antonio Banderas filling that role just because. He's getting a bit older, and I think he's got the swashbuckling skills, and we've seen him in, Desperado and Zorro and all that stuff. So I think he's kind of synonymous with swordplay, and, he's about that right age.
From what I remember...
He's suave as hell.
Yeah, suave as hell.
Yeah.
From what I remember from the original movie is that the character's origins are actually from Egypt, right?
Yeah.
Like originally Egyptian.
He's Egyptian, but then he was part of the Spanish court. Right? And then he ends up in Scotland for some reason.
So,
yeah, I mean, it could be anybody, like, really, to fill that role. Not sure where the name came from, but...
Well, since Dan, you really didn't have anyone particular in mind, like, I could see Antonio. I mean, that was one thing about the first movie that I've always... I mean, I enjoy Sean Connery just fine, but it was the one thing whenever I see the movie, I'm always kind of off kilter with. I'm just like, the character's name... It is like, the character's name is Juan... I can never get the full name, but Juan
Well,
Ramirez.
and you gotta think, like, at that time, he was an established name, and people knew him. He was kind of, like, familiar to audiences, and I think... It'd be good to have someone like a little bit more mainstream fill that role as like the, kind of the mentor.
I like the Banderas angle though, because you could buy that this is someone who is, had his origins in a very lost kingdom type of way, and then through the ages has just acquiesced to whatever culture he's had to adapt to. Let's say for the Kurgan or antagonist, who would you have in mind? Dan.
Dwayne Johnson.
Dwayne Johnson.
Yes.
Conan.
All right.
No, it makes sense because you get him to play against, typecast, because he's always like, yay, look at me, I'm the super good guy.
Mm-hmm.
But Scorpion King, man.
Okay, giant CGI Scorpion Man doesn't count.
That was Mummy 2. I'm talking about the Scorpion King.
Oh, okay.
Well, he was the hero in that one.
Yeah, he was the hero.
Yeah.
And he did a lot of swordplay, and he could wield the sword.
You mean like someone actually like menacing?
Yeah. I mean, you got to give him like scary like scars and stuff, but I think it would work.
Jason, do you have anyone in mind for a Kurganish type role?
Well, I wanted to get like a bunch of different examples, but once I thought of Michael Shannon, I just stopped thinking about it because I think he'd be perfect.
Yes, actually.
I think he would eat that role up and kick butt.
Okay, who's Michael Shannon?
Zod. He's in Boardwalk Empire. He's Zod in Man of Steel.
Yeah.
Okay.
That dude's awesome.
I loved it.
We got...
My favorite from him was Hitman, or not the one based off the video game, but
Yeah.
Or no, not Hitman, Iceman. I'm sorry.
Well, we got 3 movies, so we can use them both.
Oh yeah, that's true. Huh. So we can expand outwards. Like, maybe The Rock, or I should say Dwayne Johnson. He probably prefers that by now.
Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Dwayne The Rock Johnson could be like one of the earlier villain, and then build it up to Michael Shannon, because Michael Shannon's very like unassuming type of menace in a way.
My secondary argument for having The Rock in this is that in the first Highlander you have the Fabulous Freebirds in the beginning. So it just kind of continues that.
Yeah. All right. This wasn't a role or a couple roles that I guess I really didn't consider, but since you mentioned it, Dan, you had an idea for like maybe a love interest or not who is actually kind of an antagonist in her own right or something like that. Did you have anyone in particular in mind when you were coming up with that particular plot point or character?
I would go with Mila Jovovich.
Oh, bringing back a Basan alum.
Yeah, but not that character at all.
Yeah.
More like just the run and gun,
She could be like an immortal herself even.
Yeah.
I could
see
like she dies at like the end of the first one, and at beginning of the second one she learns she's immortal.
Jason, were there any roles or anyone else you had in mind for just throwing in there for the sake
I didn't really think about it too much for like because I don't know, I think the females haven't been too strong in the Highlander franchise. They've just been kind of typical characters. So I don't know. I think there's just any number of women that could totally, like, anywhere from Charlize Theron to anybody else, just kind of getting into those shoes. Any kind of someone that's proved themselves lately to kind of break the mold.
You could have like Ronda Rousey as a bad government person.
Oh, we're trying to make this not a B movie.
Oh, come on. She just breaks stuff. She doesn't have to talk.
Well, it's true. Yeah, give her have her be a character that got like her neck almost cut off, but it healed back, so she can't talk.
So she's got the scar.
Like the Kurgan, he just kind of whispers a lot.
Yeah, she just reminds me of I don't know, like Pebbles from the Flintstone or something. I don't know. It just doesn't. She's got that.
Well, so we'll keep her in mind for the Flintstones reboot we'll eventually get to.
Oh, geez, not again.
All grown up.
Before we move on to marketing and so forth, because like you mentioned before, and like I've said throughout all this, is that we're allowing ourselves a lot of space to say like we can have both. We can have our cake and eat it too from both camps. But I want to throw a little bit of some tidbits here for you with regards to who's been attached to this project. With regards to talent behind the camera and in front of the camera for a while. I'm going to start here. 28 weeks later, director Juan Carlos Fresnadillo had signed on to direct.
It's pronounced...
I'm pretty sure that's not true, sir.
Delicious.
Right.
Delicious. He was actually supposed to replace Justin Lin in 2011 to direct it. Justin Lin was attached to this as director at one point.
Right.
That would have been high octane. McLeod riding up buildings on a motorcycle probably or something. For the Kurgan, for a while, Vinnie Jones or Ray Stevenson were rumored to be considered for it.
Oh.
I heard Dave Bautista was rumored too.
He was the most recent one in February of 2015.
Yeah.
He was cast as Kurgan.
I would go with Vinnie Jones.
For Connor, in June of 2012, Ryan Reynolds was attached but then dropped out.
Let me guess, creative differences.
That's the go-to. That's a go-to excuse, and he's sticking to it, I'm sure. You'd probably like this, Jason. As of November 2014, the studio wanted actor Tom Cruise as Ramirez. But at that point, it was kind of one-sided because Cruise was busy shooting Rogue Nation and wasn't really focused on future projects at the time. But I forget who else I think Tom Hardy also was in the running for Connor as well at one point.
But then they said he had to emote.
And he found out that he couldn't hide behind a mask. Unfortunately.
I can be the only one!
Your precious armory. There's only one.
That's what you do to Ronda Rousey. You put a mask on her and she sounds like a Smurf. That'd be great.
I love the fishes because it's so delicious.
So, those are just a short list of people who, at one point or another, were rumored or attached to this. But like I said, this project's been languishing in development hell for a while, and I know it's going to be... a reboot is inevitable, I feel. And if they do go the route of Highlander spin-offs galore, Rogue One and Highlander story, sure. But
yeah, who knows? Maybe, I think it... What about, I don't know, it could go TV, something like, miniseries or TV show, like small season, like 10-episode seasons or something. Because, it does have a huge history on TV.
Yeah.
And I thought, while the show's a little tough to chew on sometimes, there's definitely a lot of moments where it worked.
Yeah, and in this day and age with just all streaming platforms, you could definitely put this on a Netflix or on Amazon as a exclusive series.
Plus, it's kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of like a little racy too. It's like there's all like every episode of that show, he was like banging somebody and then cutting somebody's head off. So it's like,
yeah, that's where the show was. Yeah.
So no matter how bad every story was, someone got banged and someone's head got cut off. So it was all right.
Speaking of which, though, I would want to go like a hard R.
Oh, definitely.
I feel like a Netflix one would be okay, but not like regular TV.
Yeah, there's some gnarly stuff going on Netflix. I think it'd work really well. And yeah, I mean, it's the point is to cut everyone's head off.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I think it might have to be rated R.
When your whole plot centers around slicing off people's heads and decapitation, I think. And this, like you mentioned.
You would think that, but look at all the horror movies coming out that are PG-13 about, like the one that just came out about possession and the kids, like, throwing up all over the place.
Yeah, even though
theaters, PG-13.
Most horror movies, I think a horror movie I think a successful horror movie can be rated anything just because it's all, to me, it's about like psychological. Horror movie genre is so confused because it's just all about slicing people up anymore, which is not scary. We're so desensitized.
And that's
some of my favorite horror movies are, like Something Wicked This Way Comes is a Disney movie, for Christ's sake. But yeah, like if you're going to make like a horror movie like that, it's got to be R.
Yeah, totally. Well, but I think Highlander should be mature rated for sure.
And to kind of tie it into the vision we're kind of forming with regards to this spanning more than just one movie is that, like you said, Jason, having people get decapitated left and right could leave you kind of feeling numb. So you got to be able to at least supplement that with, first of all, really eye-captivating action sequences, but then kind of really hammer home like you said, the isolation this character is supposed to be feeling, and have some makeshift horror in the movie itself, not necessarily due to violence, but due to like, holy crap, I really love this person and they are dead as hell right now.
Yeah, and when you're dealing with the concept of an immortal, you're going to have to acknowledge a lot of like mature themes and elements because they've lived lifetimes over and over and over again. It's not like they're playing with Legos forever. It's like you gotta get into the humanity of it a little bit.
Well,
maybe that's me. I'd finally be able to build that Millennium Falcon.
That would be my spin-off. It's like spend 1,000 years just working on brick by brick.
Highlander Lego movie. Is that what we're doing here?
Oh my god!
I like it. Little plastic heads rolling everywhere.
Yeah,
that could be PG.
You can get away with it there. Yeah, definitely. You can get away with decapitation there because they're Legos. They don't feel pain.
That's right. And they could like talk once their heads get cut off. Like, wow, this sucks, and dumb shit like that.
All right. Well, we're kind of segueing a little bit into the final part of this, which is marketing.
Marketing the movie and release.
how do we go about marketing Highlander to perhaps a new generation of moviegoers who only have probably the slimmest knowledge of Highlander to begin with? Because even at the point when the show was on, or when, what was the last movie? Was it The Source was the last movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, made for TV, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Straight to DVD, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I've got a copy of it.
Like you mentioned, that was like earlier mid-2000s, so...
Yeah, it was earlier 2000s.
There's definitely a generation of moviegoers, but like you said, if you want a more mature story, they probably wouldn't be the target for this. How would you market this movie to the general populace?
Well, nobody's given a shit since 1986, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to have to appeal to older audiences, and I think we should ride on the wave of, like popular, high fantasies like back in, thanks to Game of Thrones. So I think it's a good time to introduce this and kind of give it that, spin. And then the promo kind of writes itself. I mean, the There Can Be Only One is like it's in the mainstream, whether people have seen it or not. So I think just kind of, you got the tagline already. Just make it accessible to older audiences. I think they should just, like we said, go for hard R audience. I think that's a good wave right now, because moviegoers are growing up and still watching movies. But yeah, I think the promo kind of writes itself with this one.
I think you need to have a kick-ass teaser trailer. What if you could have Connor, or the main actor, running through a field with a sword, but the background keeps changing, through time, and then you see him thrust. You don't see some guy's head fall off, but you see the quickening happen, and shit's blowing up everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, you kind of introduced the concept of the scope of the story in the teaser, as it were. Like going from the distant past to this future scape you're describing, and it's all shifting around him.
Yeah, and just have it, you could even end on the, there can be only one coming November.
November 1st.
Quickening.
Yeah, because they're all one. Yeah, nice.
Right. As many ones as you can get in there.
All right.
Coming 2111. Which it might at this point.
Yeah, exactly. I do kind of like that concept with it. I definitely agree that there's got to be a lot of tackling the nostalgia factor, since what you mentioned, Jason, hasn't really been relevant even when it was striving to be relevant still. So definitely want to kind of latch onto the feelings people had, the cult status of the first movie, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of in that zone right now where all these dumb shit audience members, all they want to do is rehash what happened, and that's why we get stuff like Episode 7, where it's just like, let's just make the same movie again and put a little twist on it. So, if they can just kind of focus on that first movie, that original movie, and just kind of not remake it, but just kind of hit the beats that made it popular.
Yeah, well, in a way, it kind of goes to show, hey, we can do this just as good as they did it back then, and then maybe we can. So basically, it would kind of follow that formula a little bit. It's like, we can do a Highlander film that's, can be relevant and pertinent now, but look what we got in store for, the whole story as it is, and not just this one installment. Moving on here to the discussion section.
Loose ends, let's discuss.
Now, I think the only thing we really need to discuss is who would we want to be our Connor, essentially. I think we kind of... That's the one role where we got a couple of choices that...
Yeah.
I'm okay with any of the above. I totally think Mads would be good to just break his typecast, but I think the right idea is just an older kind of actor that needs kind of a more heroic light.
I'm trying to think if there could be some middle ground here, because with a character like this, where
we've seen Ewan McGregor with lightsabers, he kicks ass with them. I haven't seen Thomas Jane with the sword, I don't think, or the Henry Ian Cusick, but
the only one of yours that I don't like is Thomas Jane.
Yeah, I'll take him off the table, but then we're still down to 3.
Yeah,
Thomas Jane just looks just like
Christopher.
Yeah, they're very. If you look at the original Highlander, holy crap,
does have the same face.
If you wanted to go that parallel to it, he just looks like Connor.
Well, we do have 3 movies.
Which is what I'm proposing is like even though the whole concept is ageless immortal, you think there would ever be a point in the story wherein one could transform into the other or something like that?
No.
Maybe you could just borrow from Endgame, have Mads be Duncan, and then have Thomas be Connor, but just put a little Walking Dead twist on it and take Connor out in the first movie. And then follow Duncan, because Duncan, like according to the timeline, he's the only one clomping around anymore.
So
that's the part that I hated out of Endgame.
Yeah, it was tough. Lambert and I needed to move on to bigger and never mind.
Raiden?
Nothing.
Well, this is where I might have to play a kind of tiebreaker here. You know what? I am curious enough to want to give Mads the chance to show off more heroic chops. I might have to side with Dan on his casting for Connor. But
let's do it.
I'm not averse to incorporating Ian McGregor in some way, shape, or form in there. Unless he
doesn't do side characters.
Well, you need a whole bunch of immortals. I mean, this is like the 3 movies full of the arena from Star Wars Episode 2,
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we can get a few. It's just how much money we got here.
Well, and like you said, we got 3 movies. Maybe one movie there could be focus on when he, we saw in the first movie he was a student. Maybe one movie we show him being the mentor to someone else, and that could be that character essentially. Yeah, like what they did with the show, I believe, is that he was mentoring Duncan, right?
Yeah, and like somebody could be older than another, just depending on when they turned.
Right.
When they had their violent death or whatever.
Versus Bull from Night Court.
Right. Kurgan.
All right.
He was in the first episode of the TV show, wasn't he?
Yeah. That's when Connor and Duncan were like talking about him, and it's like, it's Bull from Night Court in a mask. What the hell?
That's right. I remember that.
I know him as Bull and as Two-Face. So basically, I think that was the only discussion point we had kind of left standing, because even on villains and on the mentor idea, we kind of said, we got time, we'll spread it out. Everything will be...
Also, the head watcher guy, I didn't get to say it, but I want Harvey Keitel.
Nice. He'd be a good watcher.
he just kind of hangs around and, drinks a lot, chain smokes.
Yeah, I do like the idea of the watchers just kind of being in the mix there, just because that was always interesting, just keeping records on all the battles and stuff.
I do like the idea that eventually over time they're the ones who kind of make it known, like you said, to the higher ups of the existence of these people.
like they lose like one of their libraries or something to like the government. They're like, holy crap.
I think we have the makings of a possibly very engrossing medieval / futuristic cinematic epic here that could span 3 movies plus, probably.
I mean, the only difference that we really had was in terms of tone, like, because you wanted to have like a more somber flick, of them reflecting on their immortality, and I just want shit blowing up. But if you do 3 movies, you can put both in. And
you can get both in there.
Well, that's the thing too. It's like it can be a thinking man's action film at the same time. It's like,
nice.
Like I said, if you agree with our choices, or if you have your own particular idea for a Highlander revitalization, let us know in the comments or anything like that. But again, thank you to my 2 combatants here, Mr. Jason Fury from NeverEndingRadicalDude and Mr. Dan Bauer from 3 Geeks Podcast. And once again, I am Mike McG, your host on the Remake Revolution here on McG TV. Thank you so much, guys. And also, have a wonderful holiday. By the time I probably post this, the holiday will be over, and we'll be well into December, hopefully, on something. I'll let you know what that episode is. Maybe something holiday-related. Who knows? But until such time, take care and keep watching on Never Ending Radical Dude, 3 Geeks Podcast, and McG TV.
I changed my mind. I want Eddie Murphy to play everybody.
Damn it, we're going to incorporate Pluto Nash subplots in there?
Oh, hell yeah. It's the greatest film ever made, dude. Come on.
Can we agree he'll be everything in every movie?
Yeah. Hercules.
Highlander. There can only be clumps.